Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's the Brandon Cruz Daily Fantasy Podcast, where I go and look at alone plays and strategies specifically designed for GPPs. This is a show for people who are already informed on daily fantasy sports and how these contests operate. If you have any question related to NASCAR, a stupid question, feel free to shoot them away on Twitter at BrandonCruzDFS. Most importantly, take everything with a grain of salt and use your best judgment making entries. Additionally, if you have a game like addiction, which is not my problem, check your sense of feelings at the door. We're talking about the Richmond 2 race for the Cup Series here. For the 12 of you watching, I appreciate it. NFL is back, so I assume that the audience is pretty much gone. I do appreciate it if you're still a part of the Patreon, and if you're not, you guessed it, you can join it in the description below. You can also donate to me if I help you in any way. If you like that I've put out videos all year, if I've helped you build a lineup over the course of last year, if you've won anything and you think you've learned anything from me over the course of last year, consider sending $1 through PayPal my way. The link is in the description below. So looking at the Richmond race, so I want to open with this, and it's not a great thing to open with, but I suck at Richmond on DraftKings DFS and even on FanDuel. I cannot get Richmond down, whether it's somebody wrecking or just whiffing on the lap leaders. I think Richmond is probably my worst track, so keep that in mind. So maybe, take all my stuff with a grain of salt this week. But I'm looking at it like I find it hard to believe that Larson, Hamlin, or Truex does not run away with this race. In the spring, we saw Truex and Hamlin both lead laps and both kill the field. They were both optimal. It was pretty much just those two guys, and they started first and second. I think this is very similar to that type of situation, and so I think it's either Larson and Hamlin, Larson and Truex, Truex and Larson, or Truex and Hamlin in that. So I would probably build around two of those guys. Typically, we see two dominators here at Richmond. Like I said, I just happen to always whiff on who it is and just never hit things correctly. But that's where I would start off first. I think Larson is too cheap. I think Hamlin is too cheap. And I think Truex is too cheap. You can look at different optimal lineups, but let's just look at the last race here. We had Hamlin with 138.25 DraftKings points and Truex with 98.75. If it's just two people, or even three, if it's 2 to 3 people who lead nearly the entire race, we're going to see guys over 70, 80, probably even over 90 DraftKings points in this race. So pricing isn't an issue. That's why I think they should have priced your 3 starters higher, because those are the guys I'm going to argue have the best chance at leading laps. Logano is the second guy. We've seen Logano be extremely fast this year in this package. And I think if anybody is going to be contending with the Joe Gibbs guys and Larson starting first, it's going to be the Penske gang. So you have Logano, Keselowski, even Blaney, despite the fact this is not a good track for Blaney, just based on his track history, you just see that Blaney tends to struggle here. And so my main interest building lineups is probably taking 2 of the Larson, Hamlin, Truex, Logano, and Keselowski train. That's just where it seems like I want to go for me. I want to mention that LaJoie is too cheap as well. LaJoie at $5,500, like, we need to show some respect to this team because they have come to their own. Their last 3 races, obviously, Indy Road Course, Daytona race, not the greatest indicator, but the Darlington race last week, like, I was shook. Not shocked, I was shook to see that 7 car running that well. That's wild. I couldn't imagine that in my wildest dreams, that they would be the 14th best car, finish 15th on the day. And I'm not just saying that because he was optimal last weekend, but like, nobody projected LaJoie to do that well. There wasn't a whole lot of stuff indicating that. And looking back, sure, I guess you can kind of see that they've been getting better, and they're certainly better in the 750 package, but I mean, LaJoie and this team has learned how to finish races. Obviously, they were 14th fastest last week and finished 15th, but 16th finish at the Indy Road Course despite all the crap that happened there. 22nd at Atlanta is notable. 23rd in the second Pocono race is notable. 16th at Nashville is notable. Sonoma, 18th. Charlotte, 19th. Like, I should have done a better job valuing LaJoie last weekend, because they have shown that their top 20 car, if they can get everything squared away, I think 22nd, 21st is their floor. And we're going to see, I truly believe we're going to see the 7 car be a consistent top 20 car. Due to what happened last weekend, I really think that indicates that they're on the right track, and we might have ownership being thrown on LaJoie. I don't think it's going to be crazy, but I think LaJoie is the best value on the slate. Going back to selecting 2 of the expensive guys like Larson, Hamlin, I just want to show you an example. So say if you do end up going, say you go Larson and Truex, for example. You got 7,200 left over. If you throw in LaJoie in that, you got 77.66 left over. Like, it seems to me like the lowest you want to go is LaJoie, and there's a lot of things encouraging LaJoie to do well in this race that, you might want to focus on him in the 5K range when you're building lineups. Newman performed well last weekend, and maybe it's because I'm biased. Maybe I do have I probably am biased, Newman, and I don't pay attention when I probably should at them doing well. This is another week where, looking back at how fast they've been at, say, like New Hampshire, for example, when you compare, let me just go back. When you compare LaJoie and Newman together, like, they're very similar plays at New Hampshire. Who was able to finish better? It was LaJoie. He finished 23rd. Newman, should be a 23rd place car here. Does he perform better like he did last weekend? I still think last weekend he overperformed, and I'm just pointing out, maybe I'm higher on LaJoie this week because I think they showed a lot, whereas Newman did a very similar thing, and maybe I'm not giving him enough credit, but I would personally prefer to just stick at LaJoie and not play Ryan Newman, not play Michael McDowell. I like Bubba Wallace here. I think Bubba Wallace performs well. I don't mind him. I don't mind Briscoe in this package either. Even Jones starting 31st at $6,600, I don't mind that. But if you're paying down, which you're going to need to when you're paying up for all these guys, I think it's just LaJoie in the 5K range and move on from that. Like, play LaJoie, consider him your first play, and then just imagine you're building another FanDuel lineup with 5 drivers. You just have LaJoie on DraftKings. That's how I think I'm going to go about it. I don't think I need to break down much in terms of, how many lap leaders we typically have here. I guess I'll talk about it because I know there are new people here, although I'm not much of a friendly tout towards new players because I frankly don't care. Unless you're paying me, then I'll talk to you all day. But when we're looking back at the last Richmond races, one guy run away with the race, leading close to probably 200 laps. You normally see another guy lead about 100 laps. And then, somebody will usually get scraps around 50, 30 points around there. I would probably do my projections, giving my most laps led to whoever I'm projecting in a certain lineup, to probably 180. Secondary would probably be 90 laps led for my second guy in terms of building laps if you're doing your own projections, whatever. That's probably what I would do. Zoning in on the type of builds, those type of points I'd probably end up going with. Mainly just looking at the last 4. If you want to do that, you can go farther back, but I think the last 4 Richmond races are great examples of how this race is going to go. One thing that I did talk about in the Xfinity series, and we'll do the rankings in a second, so you're not just looking at my pretty smile. One thing that I did mention in the Xfinity series is that typically we do have qualifying here, and so usually all the good cars will be starting up front. We might see some more place differential importance here. I mean, it's not major because like this is a 400 lap race. It's not like we're having like place differential play a huge factor, but you might be able to play I think all your place differential plays are mainly going to be in the 6K range, maybe low 7s if you're going to like Custer or someone. But it really seems to me like LaJoie is optimal. Either Briscoe, Bubba, or Stenhouse is optimal. Maybe even Suarez. After that, you're fighting between, the 8K range of a Bowman, of a Ryan Blaney, of an Austin Dillon. And so, in my mind, it's two 10K guys, LaJoie, and whoever else you can fit into your line. That's probably how I'll go about building lines this week. And that's pretty much it. This is with the smaller contest of DraftKings, which I wish the payout structure would get better. Can we please get together and please say, like, okay, can we please get a better payout structure? I don't care. Keep it paying out the top 20. Fuck it, whatever. But give people who finished 20th, who finished 30th, who finished 40th more money than what they get now. Like, they deserve more. They're so close to the top, and you pay them like shit. Secondary opinion on these smaller contests is that you don't have to get as crazy. We're not competing against 30,000 lineups this week. I believe the $15 has 15,000 entries, so we don't have to just, take swings and swing for the fences. We can play not a more conservative approach, but you don't have to get as crazy. You don't have to find that type of low-owned guy to get a non-duplicated lineup. We can play lineups that are going to carry ownership that may be duplicated by a fewer amount of people, or I just don't think you have to really overthink it as you do when we have the big contests earlier in the year when you're fighting against so many lineups. When it gets smaller, when NFL's back, I typically play, I guess the word is probably more conservative, because I still play GPPs, but I'm not trying to find a guy who's 7% owned. Like, I'm okay having my lowest owned driver be like 18% with these smaller contests. I'm okay with that. So now that's out of the way, let's go ahead and rank these drivers and how I want. And I just X'd out of one of the things I needed. Hold on. Sorry about that, part 2. All right, so let's go ahead and rank these guys. And these are all going to be A's for me. You can't fit them all in lineups, but these 3 guys are A's for me. I think Logano is as well. I think Keselowski is a B. Kurt Busch is interesting if you think Kurt Busch. And I didn't talk about Chastain a lot. I usually save it for the ranking stuff here, you guys that aren't, at the forefront of my brain when I start these videos. But when you look at Chip Ganassi, they are very equivalent. This team is very equivalent to having a dog your entire life. And, the dog is always kind of sick. He's kind of always tired and stuff. Excuse me. He's kind of always, kind of sluggish and stuff. You remember the times that he's the most excited is when, like, you're on vacation, you're at a different place, and then you start looking back and you're like, okay, maybe I should put this dog down. Like, he's just too sick. He's sick all the time. I don't like him anymore. I'm just going to take him behind the barn and shoot him. That's very equivalent to what Chip Ganassi does to they're finally selling the team when they're finally here. And the thing with the dog was you were just buying a great value brand type of dog food, which is very, it's not very nutritious. Anything that says it's great value typically isn't a great value. I digress to where Chip Ganassi has had a team that has never had the amount of resources that they have at this point. And as soon as you get the resources, you end up selling. Like, this is the part where I would say Chip Ganassi, you should have held on to your team because they're finally there. It's a shame that the dog is finally healthy when you start buying him good food at the end of his life, because you want to actually splurge on him and give him good food and make sure he's healthy and make sure he's feeling right before you go into the backyard and shoot him. Chip Ganassi, they're finally getting the equipment that they need, and he sells it. So if you think Chip Ganassi is going to perform at how they're kind of doing here to where Kurt Busch might actually end up being a top 10 driver, I'm going to leave him in there. Harvick, probably too expensive. We're going to keep him as a C, though. Blaney is my least interested Penske driver. Same thing with Eric Almirola. I'm more concerned about him than I am Kurt Busch, but we'll leave him in there. I don't mind Bell. Reddick is the same situation. RCR is, they need points. That's basically how they are. They're points racing, but the way you points race is you need to race inside the top 10 here because guys are going to go laps down. I imagine we're going to have 9 guys left on the lead lap. It's probably going to be a very green type of race. And Reddick seems like a guy who's either going to run 10th the entire day, stay on the lead lap, or get trapped a lap down and pit cycling or something like that. So we'll leave a C by him as well. I like Bowman. Chase Elliott, haven't talked about him. We've seen that he's been very fast on the short tracks. Even last year, entering this year, road courses, same thing. Road courses and short tracks usually correlate very well. I'll keep him as a B. I'd much rather go and get the discount off of him and go to Byron. I know Byron hasn't been as fast this year at the short tracks, and when you look at Richmond, it's one of his worst tracks. But I like Byron here, and for under $10,000 for a guy that I think is going to probably finish around 7th, especially with how poor Hendrick performed last week at Darlington. Not their own doing, but because of the stupid playoff format. These guys are going to have to be up inside the top 10 racing all day. I think Byron ends up finishing 5th on the day. I'll give Kyle Busch a B. He's in the pool, but not a priority. Not going to McDowell for me. I like Chastain. Excuse me. I think he has upside. This dog has, 9 good weekends left before we have to take it behind the barn and shoot it. So I think Chastain could perform well. I'd much rather go to Chastain than Buescher, but I'll leave him as a C. Dillon's a tough one. I can't make heads or tails off of Dillon right now. The only thing, like we've seen, we're going to leave him as a B. What am I talking about? I'll probably end up having ownerships of him, I'll probably have him in my lineups. This is going to be more of a projection-based, what I project him to do. If I project him to probably do around 9th, 10th, yeah, we'll leave him in there. Cole Custer's a C. Same thing with a C for Suarez. I'm kind of more interested in Stenhouse. Personally, like I said, I like LaJoie, so I probably won't go to Newman if I miss on Newman again, which was really a miss last weekend. A lot of guys wrecked. A lot of people had issues. Maybe I'm finding excuses. I didn't see Newman performing well last weekend. I don't see him performing well this weekend. I was wrong last week. Richmond is typically my worst DFS type of track, so we'll see how we do there. Keep him as C. Much rather go to Bubba. Matt DiBenedetto. Haven't talked about DiBenedetto at all today. Hasn't really crossed my mind. I think he's like 13th. Maybe 12th. Finishes around there. Keep him as a D. Keep him in the pool. But I see myself not getting a ton of DiBenedetto. Haley. You don't got to pivot that far down. Same thing with Alfredo. Jones. We'll leave Jones in there. I think Jones can perform well and hit value. And this is about where we're at. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26. 26 guys in the initial player pool. You could probably easily bring that down to around 17, 16 guys if you look at just the A's and B's or based on projections wherever you get them. But that's probably how I'm going to build. I think it's going to be two of the... it might even be all three of these guys. I don't like the lineups you make with three of them, though. I just look. It might be 3 10K guys, but I would much rather just be safe and play. If you're playing 3, you have more chances to hit whoever leads. If you're playing 2, you need to be more accurate and make sure you get that legit 2 dominators. I think the optimal is probably 2 guys over 10K, but I think you can still cash with 3 guys over 10K. Remember, a lot of the times you can perform, even bad plays can still have a lineup that perform inside the top 20 of all lineups. I just try and position myself to have a top 4% lineup, and then I need luck to go from a 4% lineup to a winning lineup, or a lineup that finishes inside the top 10. Kind of like last weekend in the truck series at Darlington. A lot of the cheap value didn't go through, and a lot of the place differential plays just ended up working. And I think I got lucky there because I didn't necessarily think a lot of the more payoff place differential plays would work. Certainly with people like Truex being that cheap. It's a shame that Truex had that issue for a lot of people, but it helped me. So if you guys like this, if you guys, like I said, if you want to talk to me, Patreon, if you want to see my projections, my heat map, everything I offer is on there. If you join, you can get in my Discord and ask me questions there. And yeah, just thanks for watching. I appreciate it. I don't know why you're watching this with all the NFL stuff out there, but I appreciate it. Thank you very much for sticking around and supporting me. So we'll see you guys next time. 4 p.m. Eastern is the live show with me and Jordan on Saturday. Yeah, 4 Eastern. So we'll see you guys then. And enjoy football. I know this is a NASCAR video, but enjoy that football's back.